Steve, how exciting is this to you, seeing everything else you've seen in the last year or so, to put down fresh pavement for the guys to come back to next May?
So funny you ask. You know, if it wasn't for Dale Jr., we'd have been doing this last year before we ever ran the All-Star Race, but we had to get that one last race on the old surface. So it's pretty exciting. It was funny, we were joking earlier walking around the racetrack. It's going to be weird this year for the All-Star Race because after the race is over, we won't have anything to do to patch the track between races or anything to do in the nighttime. So that's a good thing. But no, it's pretty exciting. I mean, it's, you know, a track I don't believe has been ran on 40-year-old surface other than North Wilkesboro. So to go from that, and then the next year we're going to give the same guys a chance to do it on fresh asphalt and better grip and do a little different style racing, is pretty exciting.
Talk about fresh asphalt and better grip. Is there anything special about this asphalt? Everybody's learned a lot about paving racetracks in the last 10 or 15 or even 20 years.
Yeah, so we've paved quite a few in my 20 years, and as we've gone, it's funny how they've changed in design and how you look at race surfaces. The old homage is new asphalt's always super grippy, terrible, you don't want to race it. It takes 5 to 6 years for it to finally get to the point where you're getting good races or it's worn in. Luckily in Atlanta we changed the mix design up a little bit. We changed it up here a little bit more than what we did in Atlanta. We saw 8 to 10% fall off from grip from Atlanta year 1 to year 2, which is unheard of in new asphalt. We would rather give up 5 years of life on the front end to get better racing right away than to wait 5 or 6 years for the track to come in and age in, as you hear the drivers talk about. So we've changed it up a little bit. It still will be new asphalt. It'll still be definitely grippy. It will not be as treacherous as it was back in the All-Star Race this past year, but we definitely hope to see that this racetrack will prove to be pretty competitive and for years to come.
As you planned out how all of this was going to come together, grinding up the surface and doing what you had to do, did getting it paved this quickly, was that part of the plan, or is it just taking advantage of what we've got Mother Nature?
So we've been blessed naturally. We looked at the weather and we kind of looked at the long-term forecast, and when we first ground it up, which was 2 weeks ago, it was 70 degrees and 80 degrees, and then last week it turned to be 50s and 20s, and we had I think some of the hardest frost last week, so we were like, oh no, and then we kept watching the weather coming this week, and looked like we had Monday, Tuesday to get paved, and it just continues to get better this week. We got 80-degree weather instead of 70-degree weather, so it's definitely played to be a really important. We wanted to try to knock it out this year before we get into the spring. Naturally, the longer a track has to sit and age, the better the racing becomes as we get to May, and NASCAR will want to do some testing because it is new asphalt. So it kind of fell together. The Lord blessed us really well in the last few weeks to give us the weather to make that happen, and the contractor's been phenomenal. We were figuring a good week to pave, and literally they started paving yesterday and they'll be done here shortly. So yeah.
We were talking about the idea of it gets to sit all winter and into May with, like you said, some testing on it. But what does that do? What does that aging process do before the first race?
So you definitely want, naturally after you pave a racetrack, there's a lot of fresh oil because it's fresh right out of the paver. All the oils are still fresh. You want the oxidation to take place. So UV degradation from the sun, just oxidation from sitting out in the weather. It helps to make the track age. And it you'll see it go from that real dark black new asphalt look to that gray or whiter, and as it gets older and older, it gets definitely more gray and light gray. That's when the track's actually lost all the oil on the surface. The stones become exposed, causes more fall off on the tires get chewed up better, which creates drivers chasing grip all over the racetrack instead of being stuck to the bottom.
Talk about the process to do this from the grinding to the pavement. What was this process? How did it play out from start to finish?
Everything went great. It was a great partner in the contractor we chose. The contractor has thrown, I think, every piece of equipment they own at this project and almost half their manpower. They're a lot bigger than that, but just being joking, they've got a lot of equipment out here. They've really done a good job of planning with us, helping them. This is the first track that this company's paved, so we took a chance to go with a new company that hasn't paved race surfaces before, but they've proven to have done all their homework. They've put all the pieces together. They've definitely given us a great product on the surface, and we're super excited. I mean, it's been that nervous moment before you start having somebody new, but what we're seeing, they've really done their homework and done a great job.
What did they do? They ground up how much of the surface and are putting down what?
So we basically took up 2 inches. So you try to get through the surface and analyze what's below that. This track was a multitude of different thicknesses. We had some spots that it was 4 inches thick, some spots that it was 8 inches thick. You could kind of tell through the years when they had a bad spot, they'd fix it or add more to it. It was never done contiguous or constant like it is in today's time. But again, it was paved back in the 80s. So that was before all the technology and the things that we know today. So they milled 2 inches roughly, to 2-inch surface back on top of it. We actually ended up doing a skim course over top of it because we had a lot of spots that were a little bit more brittle. We hit dirt instead of just hitting asphalt, which was some of those surprises you don't know unless you could take the whole thing out. But you get the surface mix off, then we take care of the cracks. There's a lot of cracking that was there that you saw on the surface for the All-Star Race. That was all the things that we had patched. You have to take care of those so those don't reflect through the new surface. So we do some processes there with some crack filling, a little bit of asphalt, and then we come back in, and as you see today, they're placing the final surface.
Was any of the old surface incorporated back into this new, or is it totally new aggregate and all of that?
Totally new, and the reason for that is, so they call that RAP, recycled asphalt product. We are reusing it on site. It's you can see some on the backstretch has been spread out. It makes great parking lot cover and things of that nature. We don't allow it in the surface just because, not to get too technical, it doesn't allow for the best product when you get done. It doesn't absorb the oil as much. It doesn't give you a longevity product. So we don't, you can allow it in the lower levels, but that surface mix, we don't allow it in.
Is there a way to put a name on like where the aggregate comes from? Like you think of the Darlington type stuff down in that part of the state, you know, the Sandhills, is that Shelley, Eastern North Carolina, South Carolina? What is this like here?
This is a great, very abrasive granite product that comes right out of the mountains, not far from, right here in Boone, and right, everything you see in the background, that's where this is made up of granite, which is a great abrasive, just gritty, real similar to what we use in Atlanta, just being from the mountains of North Carolina. So the Blue Ridge Mountain rock, as you could call it, but it's definitely a good granite product that creates some sketchy racing as it ages out.
Nice. What will the drivers say when they get on this track? What can you imagine in your head that they're going to be like, wow, or what do you think?
It'll be interesting. It's the track is so unique, and as we've got into this project, we looked at, do we reconfigure, and by reconfiguring, do we look at how we change the profile of the track all the way around? Do we go back? So Marcus was very adamant, just like we did with the rest of the construction, to keep what was as is. So we matched the character of the track that was here. So everything we put back was matching. So we are still North Wilkesboro. There's nothing new, whiz bang. But what we found is there's some areas that the track's shaped like concave, and there's some areas that it's convex. There's some areas that it's wide, some areas that it's narrow. It's a very unique track from what we're used to. I mean, naturally, to the modern era, you try to make things uniform, very symmetric, geometrically correct. That way, the drivers don't unload or load the cars. This track's everything but that. It has every aspect of things that you probably wouldn't do at a racetrack in different spots, which is unique to Wilkesboro. It runs downhill, you run uphill in turn 3, and then by the time you get to turn 1, you're 18 feet lower than you were in turn 3. All the water runs to one spot. But as we got into the track and as we started shooting and looking at it, it's a unique track, to say the least. A lot like the Darlington is unique, as they talk about. Wilkesboro has a lot of that same character. So it'll be, when the drivers get here, it's going to be new asphalt. Hopefully they appreciate new asphalt compared to things that can come up and fail. I know I appreciate it, so we don't have to patch the track every night between races and keep it glued together, but it definitely should create more grooves for them and give them a little bit better process of searching for grip on the racetrack.
Has Dale Jr. weighed in on this yet?
He has. He knew it was inevitable. Naturally, he is the chairman of North Wilkesboro. Marcus named him that, so he's definitely involved. He knew it had to be repaved, and he was very reluctant to repave it. He loved the old surface, but he knew that it had to happen, and ultimately it would happen.
There was talk about, back when Dale Jr. was sort of pushing things along for those first few races, there were talk of making it an all dirt deal. Why didn't you have to go all the way to the dirt to then repave it? Was it just not necessary? Trying
to hold on to that character. I mean, there's a lot of things in today's world, technology-wise, that we could still recreate some of that character. But when you take everything to dirt, naturally the more layers of asphalt that you pave, the smoother things get. So you take a lot of those bumps and impurities out. So to try to hold on to that the best we could, we took the minimum amount out to still have a durable product and to maintain that character.
Let me make sure I haven't wrapped up any details. Tell me the name of this company that's doing this.
It's Summers and Taylor, incorporated out of Johnson City, Tennessee.
All right.
Can you also talk a little bit about the legacy with Carl Rose?
Yeah, absolutely. Paving contractor, Summers Taylor. One of the things we wanted to look at, So Carl Rose and Sons was a company that paved this originally for Enoch Staley. They paved it the second time in '81 for Enoch, and now they're still in business. They had sold out to Maymead, which is a local contractor, but they still run the Carl Rose name in this area. They don't have the capabilities or didn't really want to get back into the new modern day paving. So we wanted to utilize them. We wanted to make sure we involved them. And Dale Rose, who actually was running the paver in '81 when it was there, has been out here, has talked to Summers Taylor's crew. They're providing all the mix. So all the asphalt's coming from their plant. Their trucks are helping haul the product to the site. The only thing that's different is the contractor that's actually placing it is Summers Taylor.
That's good legacy stuff right there.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Is there anything out there about the way this is done that surprises you from any previous paving jobs you've seen, been a part of? Are they doing anything different? Is it really just old school out here this time with a few tweaks?
No, you know, amazingly, I'm not familiar, and with all the tracks that we own and have paved over the years, and then the tracks that are on the NASCAR circuit that we've been aware that they've paved, I'm not aware of one NASCAR oval track that they've ever paved in echelon. So as you see in the background, echelon means you've got two pavers running at the same time. So the worst part of a racetrack, anytime that if you remember old Atlanta, there was these big old black seams that the cars would drive over, and at one point in Atlanta history, the cars started pulling that product up out of, and we had to pull that stuff out. It stopped the race. So that's a cold joint. In echelon, you don't get a cold joint, you get a hot joint, which means that it's basically, instead of, let's just call it an 18-foot wide paving lane, you end up with 36 feet that there is no joint, which is really, from a maintenance standpoint, from operational and long-term durability of the surface, is a great thing to have. We've paved road courses that way, but never an oval, because it's usually so difficult to pave on high banks, so difficult to get that much equipment. As you can see, there are numerous rollers, there's 2 pavers, there's 6 shuttle buggies, there's a lot of equipment that makes that happen. And the thing that made this one unique, the contractor actually approached us. We didn't even think about running an echelon because we've never done that on an oval. They approached us and asked if they could, and we're like, absolutely. If you can figure out the logistics of your equipment, then for sure. And as you can see, is in turn 1, which is the narrowest point on the racetrack, it kind of became a pinch point. We had what you'd call in the NASCAR world the pile up right there in turn 1 as we got there, but they were able to maneuver and they had the logistics worked out to do that. So that is unique and new, and the only oval that I'm aware of on the circuit that's ever paved in echelon.
How long will this last? How long will this pavement be here for racing?
You know, I mean, ideally, what we look at, I mean, you try to hit in the asphalt world 18, 20 years, and we feel like this one should hold up every bit of that.
We hope we're racing here then.
Yes, absolutely. We do too.
Anybody else want to say?